should be starting here momentarily. Right. And looks like we do have everyone connected now. So I'm going to go ahead and get everyone checked in. Start with Mr. Posey. Mr. Posey, if you could unmute, confirm that your name is Richard Posey and tell me who you're representing here today.
Richard Posey. I'm principal architect with K4 Architecture.
Okay, great. Welcome. I see that we have two gentlemen. Actually, I'm just not sure what's happening with this screen. I've never seen this before, but everyone in the split screen there.
Yes, there's 4 people in the room. This is, and you're speaking with an OWL device. The camera will pick up each person's face as they speak. So if Kyle or one more time, Sean. Kyle or Sean, if you want to speak, your faces will show up on the screen as well.
Okay, great. So why don't we do this? We'll have everyone that intends on providing any testimony here today, go ahead and introduce themselves, give me their first and last name and who they're representing or what their titles are with an organization.
I'm Brian Bruner with K4 Architecture, project manager.
I'm Father Nathan Wentz. I am the president of Xavier Jesuit Academy.
Nathan Wentz, and that's W-E-N-T-Z.
W-E-N-D as in dog, T as in tree.
Got it. Okay, Wentz. All right. And what your title, sir, Mr. Wentz?
President of Xavier Jesuit Academy.
Got it. Okay.
I'm Kyle Chandler, principal of Xavier Jesuit Academy.
Okay.
I am Sean Schuler, Director of Finance, Xavier Jesuit Academy.
Could you spell your first and last name for me?
S-H-A-W-N S-C-H-U-L-E-R.
Okay. Thanks for being with us. And I'm sorry, your title?
Director of Finance.
Got it. Okay. Anyone else over there? Okay. Great. Welcome, everyone. And then I see that we have Matt Lashad from our zoning department. Welcome, Matt. All right. Are we expecting anyone else to join us on the applicant owner side? Okay. Let's go ahead. Okay, we're ready to proceed.
Yes, and if they show up late, is that a problem?
No, if anyone shows up at any time, I just let them in.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Cool. All right. I need to read through our hearing script. This will just cover the procedure for the hearing, and then we'll go ahead and jump into it. So this is the July 12th, 2023 session of the Zoning Hearing Examiner docket. My name is David Sturkey. I'm the Zoning Hearing Examiner for the City of Cincinnati. I'll preside over this hearing today. The case before us today is case number ZH20230096. The purpose of this hearing is to allow applicants and any potential opposing parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the Zoning Hearing Examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or any opposing party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing. The hearing will proceed as follows. The applicant, the applicant's attorney, or the applicant's agent will first present the applicant's case. If there were anyone here from the public would have an opportunity to speak after the applicant had presented its case. I will give our zoning department an opportunity to provide any testimony in addition to the staff report. In the event that any party testifies or offers argument in opposition to this application, the applicant will have an opportunity to rebut that testimony and or argument offered in opposition. And then finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to make any closing statements. So for our purposes here today, I will give the folks at K4 and at Xavier Jesuit an opportunity to tell me about the project, why they think it's appropriate, any background they think is important. You all can orient that presentation however you would like. One of you can speak, all of you can speak, really in whichever order. It's completely up to you. Then I'll go over to Matt. I'll have some questions along the way. then I'll allow you guys to respond to any of those questions and to any of Matt's testimony and make any closing statements. After all presentations have been made, I will close the hearing. Decisions may be expected within 2 weeks. I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or to make any comments. I may also refuse to consider hearsay testimony that's generally evidence you want to introduce that consists of statements made by someone who's not present at this hearing today. In the event of any technical difficulties with the Zoom technology, I'll do my best to troubleshoot those on the fly. Although it seems you're more technically advanced than I am here today with the OWL technology. But if there's some defect that prevents us from meaningfully going forward with the hearing, I may continue or postpone the hearing at my discretion. Okay, last thing I need to do is just swear in all of our witnesses. So if you intend on providing any testimony here today, making any comments, asking any questions, really doing anything other than just strictly observing here today, then the zoning code requires that I swear you in. So if that's you, if you can make sure that you're off mute, I need everyone to raise their right hand and to answer out loud. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. Who will be taking the lead here today on the presentation?
That'll be me.
Okay, floor is yours.
So I'm just gonna, as I mentioned to the team here, I'll give you a brief overview of the project, and then they will be elaborating on their respective aspects to support the process. So the project is 1619 California Avenue. Xavier Jesuit Academy will be a tenant within the Church of the Resurrection at the address. With the project, with the new tenant that's going to be coming into the building for the church, there will be a new elevator tower installed to the north of the building. And then there will be a new entry vestibule and new entry addition that will be installed to the south of the church building. The incorporation of the new entry and the elevator tower is requiring us to go through the zoning process again and seek a new conditional use approval. And hence the purpose of this meeting. With the inclusion of the two additions and the rework of the new entry that we will be creating to service the school, there will be minimal new paving added. We have, researched the zoning code and gotten a preliminary plan approved by Matt Lashad, showing our conformity to the city of Cincinnati's zoning requirements. We have added a landscaping around all indicated and required pieces of construction for the property at the new entry, at the dumpster enclosure that we're proposing, and of course, any other aspects around the new entry paving at the front entry. Those items are incorporated, and like I said, we have shown our compliance to the city of Cincinnati standards. The other aspect of the project that is being evaluated is the inclusion of a building sign and a ground sign. I know technically there's only one sign allotted for our district that we're in, our residential district, but from our discussions with zoning administrators, Matt Lashad and the rest of his team, I know the city is supporting our inclusion of a building and a ground sign. I can assume, some of the support is because of how the entry is to the school. You're kind of entering on a narrow alley basically, and then coming around to the back for the front door of the school. So there is support there for having the monument sign, which is the ground sign out front, and then having a building sign, which is in the back parking lot to the south on the building, kind of identifying the school. There will be additional signage, as conveyed to us, that will be, under the, I think it was 6 square feet, just for general wayfinding. Because if you think of the floor plan or the footprint, of the school and the church is like an H. The school is the left side of the capital H, and the church is on the right side of the capital H. And the bar between the H serves as the connector, which will be a joint area shared between the school and the church. And that piece between the two halves will have a shared entry, and that's creating the addition that I mentioned. I think that covers the scope of the project. And I think, Rick, if you'd have more architectural items that you'd like to add for support before we pass it off to the Xavier team to elaborate on, feel free to do so.
Yeah, I just wanted to, for clarity, this is an existing building. And the existing building is already an existing sanctuary for the church and an attached school. Historically, the school was actually built first and the sanctuary built a few years later. And it's been operated as a school continuously until about 9 or 10 years ago. The church school, the Catholic school, had closed many years ago. There was some consolidation of parishes. The school was then leased to a charter school that is no longer in existence, and it's been set unused. So the public records last use would be a school. It's always been a school. We're not proposing to change that use. The additional square footage is to make the building fully handicapped, accessible, and compliant. In addition to electrical systems are going to be replaced and upgraded to current code. An elevator is going to be added. Mechanical systems are going to be updated, replaced, proper ventilation. And then there's cosmetic finishes. So it's the minor square footage addition of the elevator and what we're calling an entry lobby or the atrium that faces the parking lot. Those two elements are primarily to allow accessibility. The building is essentially like a split level. So there's no entry that is at parking lot grade. So we have to come into a new lobby, access the main floor with a lift, and then that would get you access to the elevator that serves 3 floors. So we're simply asking, as required, that for a continuation of the conditional use that allows the church and school in a residential zone. And then the variance for the additional building sign, which would be added to identify the school from the parking lot, and simply an upgrade and replacement of the existing ground sign on California that identifies the property, replacing that sign and identifying both the church and Xavier Jesuit Academy. Thank you.
Gotcha. Just a couple quick questions. Did you say that the school or the church had not been in continuous use since it was constructed?
It has been the school. The church is in continuous use. The school has never been anything other than a school. It has not been occupied by the last tenant, which was a third-party charter school. And the church has simply been using the classrooms for educational and congregational use.
Got it. Okay. And to be clear, we're talking about an existing ground sign that will be changed or upgraded.
Yes, correct.
Okay. And that's in the front along California.
That is correct.
And the other signage is a sign in the rear, and it's a rear wall sign that will be sort of wayfinding for the parking lot.
No, it wouldn't be wayfinding for the parking lot. It's going to be identification for the school.
Got
In
it.
other words,
Okay.
over the new entry lobby, over the new
Got
entry lobby.
Over the new entry, yes.
Got it. Okay. All right. And could you tell me how large is the sign?
Both signs are 24 square feet. The limitation established within the zoning code. They're about 8 by 3, rough measurements. 8 foot by 3 feet. Mhm.
All right. Let's see. Okay, I don't think that I have any other questions right now. I'm gonna go ahead and move to public comment. I see that we have someone that has joined. I'm gonna find out who that is. Ms. Warren, Adrienne Warren, if you could unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Can
Ms.
you
Warren,
hear me?
yeah, I can. Could you give me your full name and tell me who you're representing here today?
My name is Adrienne Warren. I am a property owner on California Avenue. I'm sorry I joined in late. So I just wanted to make sure that I was able to speak when it was time for the vote because I wasn't at the initial start.
Sure. Yeah. So we just heard the presentation from the applicants who are architects and members of the school, the Xavier Jesuit Academy. And we were just going to move to public comment. So this would be the time where I would hear from any neighboring property owners or members of the public. So if you'd like to add any comments, I can take those now, but I'll need to swear you in first. So would you
Okay,
like to provide comment on the project?
yes.
Okay, if you could raise your right hand. And before we do this, I need to make sure, are you driving right now? Is the car in
No, I'm
motion?
parked. I'm parked.
Okay. Okay. Just ask that you stay stationary during your testimony. If you could raise your right hand, do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. What would you like to tell us?
So I am a property owner and I live almost directly across the street from the Church of the Resurrection. I've been there for about 12, 13 years now. Um, I received a notice in the mail from the city that this is something that they're requesting a zoning change for the purpose of a school. I did live there when they had I guess it was a charter school some years back, and it very negatively impacted the community. I feel like the Church of the Resurrection, or formerly St. Agnes, I believe at the time, um, there's some opportunities for them to be a better neighbor. They have their church and their business there, but they're not very responsible for the crime that occurs, in and around their property. They have several openings on that property that allows people to come in from the park and from other side streets, and that has a huge negative impact on the community. We've spoken to them. They have a gentleman that comes out and puts a stanchion rope up every night about 9 o'clock. We've had to talk to them. They said they're going to present it to the deacon boards. We're not seeing any changes. When they had the school before, I remember it was older children, and they would sit on everyone's steps and like smoke marijuana every morning. There were fights. There was a conflict of interest because younger children from Bond Hill Academy were coming out of school, and we reported it to the principals. We would call the police. They're just not very responsible with the things that they want to bring in. I received this notice from the city. I've not received any information from the Church of the Resurrection saying what they'd like to bring to the community. So I'm not sure what their method of communication is, but they may have gone to Pine Hill Community Council. And if you're not in the meetings right now, you didn't get that information from there, but they're not bringing the idea to the community as to what it is they're trying to do. And because of those reasons that I stated, you're not informing me and asking me, my opinion on what you're putting across the street from me. You lack being a good neighbor when we've talked to you about securing that property more, doing more to not allow people to trespass on that property when you are not, during your business hours, when you're not there to be responsible for what's going on. So my vote is just going to be no, that they cannot have a zoning change, because I really would prefer them not to have a school there, because that brings on other, unnecessary drama. And also I would be concerned for the children that are going there, because if you can't secure your property from people entering from the park and entering from Anita Place and any other openings and shortcuts, then I think you're opening up those children, to be subjected to an unsafe situation. So that is my take on it. And that is why my vote is no. I would not be in favor of honoring a zoning request for them to have a school in place.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks, Ms. Warren, for your testimony. Thanks for being here today. If I could ask just a couple follow-ups.
Sure.
When so how long have you lived across the street?
Since 2009.
Okay.
I am
And
formerly past president of the Blind Hill Community Council. I'm the president of the Block Watch. And so I've witnessed, several sets of activities, prostitution, people being robbed after hours behind their building. So I'm very well, rounded on what's really going on there. And I don't believe that they're not educated on it. I just believe that they're not doing anything about it.
gotcha. And I'm still a little unclear on the timeline, and I may have to ask the applicants this, but it sounds like the church has been in continuous use on this property since it was constructed, and that there was a school operated by the church on the property for some period of time, up until a charter school took over and was operating the school on the property. Let me just go real quick to the members of the Jesuit Academy. Can someone clarify whether or not that timeline is accurate before you respond to some of her other comments?
Yeah, so so Xavier Jesuit Academy, just to clarify, I believe the question was asking if Xavier Jesuit Academy was in the school.
What I'm asking, I'll be more clear. What I'm asking is, can someone tell me what schools have operated on the property and when for the duration of the building's existence?
Yeah, it's.
Hi, this is Nathan. Thank you, Ms. Warren, for your comments. I'm Father Nathan Wentz. I'm the president of Xavier Jesuit Academy. From my understanding, we are a new tenant of the building. I'm not totally clear on the entire history of the charter schools in the building. So we're leasing from the Archdiocese and the Church of the Resurrection to use the space. And from my understanding, the St. Agnes Catholic Elementary School closed in the early 90s, around 1993. And since that time, I believe there's been at least one charter school. I believe it was a PACE school.
That's correct.
I am not familiar with that entity at all. I don't know anyone who operated that school or any of the history besides that it existed for a short while in that building. And I don't know the year that it closed, but I do know that the building, maybe 2013. But since then, the school portion of the building has not been occupied and utilized as a school. And so Xavier Jesuit Academy is bringing the Catholic education back to that school in a particular way for young men from Bond Hill and the surrounding communities to respond to the community's desires from our feasibility studies about a need or for other options for education in the neighborhood. So we're responding to that and with the community partners and so forth. Yes.
So thank you for that. I appreciate that. So you don't know exactly when the charter school was operational on the property, but Xavier Jesuit Academy, the entity that is asking to come in and operate a school now, has never operated a school on this property or in this building.
That is correct.
That's correct.
Gotcha. Okay, so you had nothing to do with any of the operations of the previous schools, to put it another way.
That is correct.
Okay. Let me go back. And so just once, did you want to clarify something, Mr. Bruner? I'll give you, you all have an opportunity to respond to her questions in whole. I just want to make sure that I understand her testimony. And so, Ms. Warren, you said that you saw a lot of crime and loitering associated with the school that spilled out on the surrounding properties. Is that right?
Correct. And the school was PACE. We would call the principal because it's like, okay, well, you're in there right now. Can you come outside and see what's going on? We would have to call the police. And the issue is really the only reason that PACE left is because they lost their funding. It was not because it was St. Agnes at the time, I believe. St. Agnes or Resurrection whichever they were, it wasn't because they were being a great neighbor and being proactive to the concerns of the community. It was just simply because they lost their funding and could not, maintain paying the bill for the school the following year that they left. So the Jesuit Academy has not, like I said, reached out to the community as a whole, has not sent, things out in the mail to let us know what they're doing. This is the first time that I'm hearing anything about it being sent something from the zoning board. And whether it's the Jesuit Academy that's, wanting to come in and lease this space, as a stakeholder in the community and a property owner, I still do not give my blessing because I stand on what I've experienced. And if this is something that they want to do, I don't see parameters put in place to make things better and to make things safer. I just see another opportunity for this church to make more money using their space. And so they're wanting to lease it out again.
Got it. Okay. And so when the Pace School closed, did you see an improvement in crime and safety and security in the neighborhood?
Yes, I did.
And that was mainly because there were less children that attended the school that were loitering and committing crimes in the neighborhood.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. And so you're concerned that this could continue or that those sort of problems could ramp up again with the introduction of another school.
Correct. Typically, the problems that we had at that time were mainly the Bond Hill Quick Stop, which sat at the corner of California and Redding. And so that is kind of the Bond Hill Business District. It is not the residential part. Having those students have to have access to California Avenue in order to get to the school kind of brought all of the negative elements down into the residential area. And that's, definitely a concern of that happening again, because it seems as though the school is not, and I don't know if the law's changed. It's been a lot of years since I've been in school, but it used to be that schools were responsible for kids until they got completely home. Now it seems as though when these kids are off of the property, the school is no longer responsible for them. And so it makes the response time to the complaints, they can't react quickly. They can't, if there's anything at all that they can do, their hands are a little bit tied, and then it becomes a police matter. So then you have to wait for police service, and that it's just not what we want to do as neighbors. It's not the reason that I purchased a home there. I knew that Bond Hill Academy had a school, and I was fine with that. But them putting the school directly across the street from my house, I don't feel like that's okay.
Okay. Any other potential adverse impacts you think may occur as a result of the school going in?
Like I said, their demographic is centered around boys. And sometimes, boys will be boys and there's a little trouble. However, because there are several openings, there used to be, I don't remember the name of the street next to me, if it's Carolina, they closed off the ability to drive into the parking lot from Carolina. There is accessibility via foot traffic from Bond Hill Park, also from Anita Place, which Anita Place is an eyesore in Bond Hill. It has a high level of crime on that cul-de-sac. There are some spots behind some of the residences on that cul-de-sac that allow you to walk directly onto Church of the Resurrection's property. Like I said, I've witnessed people being robbed, cutting through there at night. People are lying and waiting for them. There's a garage that kind of obstructs the view. I personally had to speak with a member of their staff. I said, there's 2 prostitutes and a pimp sitting right there on your step. Are you going to do anything about that? And so if I were, going to choose a school for my child and I were to be able to see the accessibility for those things to happen, I wouldn't feel that that was a safe environment. So I also would have a concern for those children, because I will want them to be protected and safe as well. So if you have, people that randomly access that property, most other schools, perimeters are sealed off. There's steps to getting into the school. So if you can't protect the community, I'm not understanding how you're going to protect those children from those elements that are outside of the school.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to share, Ms. Warren?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. So
I'm sorry. May I have a moment?
Yeah.
I heard the mention of a feasibility study. When I was president of the community council, there was a grant that we received from the city for a $65,000 feasibility study. I'm not quite sure this feasibility study that they mentioned, because again, they have not been in communication with the community as a whole. But I think it would be a lot better and a lot more efficient to partner to go along with the plans and what would be best for Bond Hill. Again, I kind of feel like they're doing what's best for them, whether it be the Jesuit Academy and or Church of the Resurrection. But they have a feasibility study, we have a feasibility study, and it kind of comes across as their own agenda when there are already things in place, but you're not working with the community to make sure you're a good fit. You're just kind of coming in and then presenting, hey, this is what we've done. So I did just kind of want to make that comment that we do have a feasibility study already existing, and there are, plans in place for Bond Hill. And I don't feel like that was considered when they decided that they wanted to come in with this. And in addition, because of those things being in place, I would like for them to tell me how them bringing the Jesuit Academy into the Church of the Resurrection is going to have a positive impact on the immediate residents of California Avenue, Carolina Avenue, and those streets that border the location of the Church of the Resurrection.
Okay. And real quick, Ms. Warren, when you say you have a feasibility study, what a feasibility study on what?
What should be brought into our community to help
as a whole?
Yes, to help the growth
Gotcha.
and increase the positive impact on Bond Hill.
Gotcha. Okay. And you're saying that utilization of this property as a school was not a recommendation, or was not a part of the outcome of that study?
Absolutely, it was not. I still have a copy of the study in my email and can provide it to anyone that would like to see it.
Okay. Thanks, Ms. Warren. I'm going to kick it back over to the applicants to respond, and then I will go to the zoning department after that. But I'd like to give them a chance to respond while it's still fresh. Ms. Warren's comments are still fresh, and Ms. Warren, I'll just put you on mute for now. Thanks. Okay, so I have a couple questions, but why don't I open up the floor to the applicants and the members of the Jesuit Academy to respond to comments from Ms. Warren. And you all are on mute.
So I'm Kyle Chandler, Ms. Warren. I'm the principal of Xavier Jesuit Academy. Just like Father Wentz said earlier, I definitely appreciate the feedback, and I'm sorry if you feel as though you haven't been included in this process or consulted for your feedback. I know we've had opportunities to speak with the Bond Hill Community Council. We've also had different constituency groups that have met with us. This is since April of last year to find out what people's thoughts were. I didn't get a chance to look at the 2013 feasibility study, but I've seen some of the, I think there was another study that was done a little bit more recently. The last one I saw was, I think, 2018, 2019, and then looking at some of the census information. And I guess two of the major takeaways that I saw. Number one, let me back up and say, Ms. Warren covered a lot. And so there's no way I think I can cover kind of all of her key points just in this short time that we have together. So I'm just going to hit on a couple of them. But two of the things that jumped out to me in that feasibility study and on that census information was there were health challenges that specifically pertain to the residents within the Bond Hill community. They talked about air quality, they talked about access to to grocery stores, to produce and food deserts, as it is. And it also talked about one of the most vulnerable populations in that space was also the young males there. And the information that they provided was some of the success rates at the local schools in Bond Hill, graduation rates in 8th grade, transitions to high school, success in high schools, and then being able to attend college. And so that information that we got, which included numbers from the Bond Hill Academy, which is across the street, weren't overly impressive. And so because of that, the feedback that we got was that if we want to address and have a significant impact in the Bond Hill area, that education was a key piece. And so the reason why they brought us to the table, Ms. Warren, is because the Jesuits have a proven track record of educational excellence that doesn't just include academics, but also includes wraparound services. One of those key pieces is committed to justice and service and community. So I don't know much about Pace Academy. I'm sure there were people who really cared about kids who were leading that school. I'm sure there were kids who really needed their instruction, but I must say that their mission is very different than our mission. Their age demographic is very different than our age demographic as well, which is why we thought that it was important for us to start up this academy with young men in grades 3, 4, and 5 to begin with, right? Our classes are only 15 students to begin with, progressing up until the 8th grade. And I'll say too, to your concern about, once we dismiss them, they're the community's responsibility to care for. I would say they're everybody's responsibility to care for. But as far as we're concerned, we care about them from the time that they enroll until they become adults and future citizens, productive citizens in our society. And I don't say that tongue in cheek. I'm not saying that to dismiss anything that you're saying. I've been engaged in Jesuit education for the last 19 years. This is my 20th year. I was at a Jesuit high school in Detroit. Again, my name is Kyle Chandler, right? I have a proven track record for being able to impact education at this level and beyond. And so I think about things that we've done that go beyond traditional education too, is our school day is longer. And so you won't find our students wandering the streets in the middle of the day. We're trying to give parents opportunities to drop their kids off before they go to work and then pick them up after they go to work. The other side is going to be partnerships. So working with the CRC, when you look at that Bond Hill Park that's behind the school, you'll see that there've been a lot of improvements that have happened, including that playscape that was kind of taken out of the shadows in the back where people were once just hanging out, doing all kinds of things that I wouldn't want my young kids seeing. All of a sudden now you bring those things out into the light. You talk about that FC soccer pitch, where all kids may not play soccer, but it's another step to bring engagement and activity. Activity draws off criminal behavior. We talked about the lighting that's going on in that parking lot. I've been there late night when I go to Mass at Church of the Resurrection on Christmas Eve, right? And it's a scary journey sometimes from that parking lot inside of the sanctuary, but we're committed to making sure that lighting is there, that the security cameras are there. The other piece is the reason why we're here for this variance is twofold. I would say, this continuance of the status. One is that we need to go through this process in order for us to be able to communicate things to the community, right? So for us to have reached out to folks and told them everything that we're gonna do, truthfully, before we get these permissions, we don't want to share, we don't want to share anything with everybody until we have a plan. Because this isn't just a hope and a dream. This is something that's going to happen. And so hopefully once we get through this phase of it, then we can more adequately communicate timelines so that people understand. I mean, my plan is to start recruitment really soon, but I need these things to go through first. And I think my last part is the reason we're asking for this continuance as well as the expansion of the building includes this atrium. First and foremost is the safety of the kids. The way that education is these days, you need to have a secured entry and exit point. And so by adding this atrium, it allows us, number one, visibility to the outside, but number two, an opportunity for us to be able to selectively pick who gets to come inside the building and who gets to exit the building. And I would say that also extends to the Church of the Resurrection, because right now, parishioners, guests, visitors, they enter straight into the sanctuary. That's not very secure, especially in 2023. So instead, by having this new secured atrium, it gives everybody who's involved in any of these projects more secure, more safe understanding of what's going on. I mean, I'll tell you, I guarantee to be more responsive, but the reality is, Ms. Warren, you don't know me. But I will tell you that I'm committed to this. There is no monetary gain for us. The ultimate thing for any educator is that we want to impact young people's lives. The reality is, in partnership with the Bond Hill Rec Department, the Bond Hill Rec Center, Bond Hill Academy, and everybody else that's involved, with this particular community.
Mr. Chandler, a couple follow-ups there on some points you mentioned. One, did you say that you had talked or communicated to the Bond Hill Community Council or any other community groups about your plans for this school?
So we've been to several Bond Hill Community Council meetings, had opportunities to present to them. Father went in front of the community council probably a full year ago, if not longer. I had a chance to go in front of them several months ago to give them a bit of a timeline and an idea. I shared some materials with them as well, just so they knew what was going on. I've also been to the Roselawn Community Council meetings as well. So trying to share the news, but obviously from Mrs. Warren's account, we could do a better job of that, and we need to find a way to get to people who don't go to those meetings.
And
Gotcha.
also,
And I was just going to say, following up on that real quick, do you have any response from Bond Hill? Did Bond Hill write any letters or issue any support, either verbally or written?
I mean, I don't know if Father Went's gonna pull up some communications. I know when I had a chance to speak to folks, there was nothing but kind of gratitude and excitement, including but not limited to the president of the Bond Hill Community Council. Once I sat down, I mean, there were several people that asked me for my contact information because they had either family members or friends who they thought might benefit significantly from our school environment.
Mr. Bruner, did you want to add something to that?
yes, well, I was speaking with Father Nathan about this the other day, and he'll elaborate, but Jackie Emerson, the president of the community, had reached out to us a few days ago, just to show her support for what we were doing. Father Nathan, you want to?
Yeah, she checks in with me periodically about the progress of Xavier Jesuit Academy, and I try to keep her informed as president along with the other office holders on the Bond Hill Community Council. So she has acknowledged that I have been, and Kyle has been very present in the community, showing up to Bond Hill, not only community council events, but other events in the community, like most recently, the Habitat for Humanity block party. So I've been present there. So we show up. Our part of our mission and part of the development of this school has been for community collaborations. I am aware of the most updated Bond Hill Roselawn community plan, which I think was last updated in 2019. And one of that is about youth and education and safety. And we're bringing, I believe, all three of those things into this community. And it's been very welcomed, again, by that Bond Hill Community Council, who are also quite involved along with other community members, pastors of the local churches in Bond Hill and Roselawn. We had multiple meetings over the course of a couple of years with all those community leaders and faith leaders to talk about our school, and the reception that we've received has been nothing but positive and welcome, especially in regard to some of the concerns that have been raised today about what youth are doing, particularly boys in the neighborhood, providing more opportunities for education and positive growth, and have positive role models present, and also for community safety, as in taking an unused building and beautifying it, making it welcoming and very secure and safe in collaboration with the Cincinnati Rec Department behind the Bond Hill Council, different parishes on the street, and other business leaders also. So, and we also have a couple of members of the community on our board who are our leaders, including Mr. Gene Ellington, who has multiple properties and working on economic equity, especially for Black-owned businesses in the neighborhood, and affordable and housing, and improving the housing stock in Bond Hill and Roselawn. He is on our board and a great champion of the mission. Deacon Royce Winters, who's at the Church of the Resurrection, long-term Bond Hill resident, former police officer of the city of Cincinnati, who is very enthusiastic about bringing the quality education, the proven education that Xavier Jesuit Academy can bring to this particular location. And the purpose of our mission is that we want to be there because of the concerns that Ms. Warren has brought up. That's where we want to be, as an asset, as building up the assets of the community, which there are many, and collaborating with that and supporting it to make that area, the residents that live around that area, safer, more things to be proud of, more options for families.
A couple more follow-up questions on some of the points earlier. You mentioned that this school, that the grade levels are going to be third, fourth, and fifth. Then you also mentioned something about through eighth grade. Could you clarify exactly what grade levels will be attending the school?
Long term, the school will be grades 3 through 8. But when we open our doors in the fall of 24, it'll be third, fourth, and fifth graders. And then every year we'll add on an additional grade level until we're completely third through 8.
Gotcha. Okay. And you said that class sizes will not exceed 15 students?
So we're at, right, so there'll be 45 students, I mean, depending on our recruiting, there'll be 45 students enrolling next year. And then again, part of our model is small class sizes, because that allows us to provide greater, more in-depth instruction.
Do you have maximum size levels that, or is there a capacity level associated with the building itself? If recruiting efforts are successful and you reach the 3 through 8, how many total students are we talking about in terms of enrollment that's possible?
I mean, in our meetings, we've said that there won't be any more than about 110, 115 students.
Okay. And you mentioned something about longer hours. What will be the operational hours of the school, either for just classroom time or extracurriculars and those sort of things?
So that's one of the details that we're trying to finalize. But schools, so we're part of a nativity model network, as Father Wynn alluded to. Normally, school day starts at about 7:30 is when breakfast is served, with the school day starting at 8 o'clock, and then it goes until about 4:30 to 5:30 to 5 o'clock. And so then you have to book in a little bit of extra time in case parents aren't able to drop off immediately when the doors open, when the breakfast starts, or they can't pick up immediately when the school day ends. So I think that's the other added piece to it, is normally in elementary schools, you don't release students unless you know that they're going home. And so unless parents have signed a permission slip saying that they're walking home, you're normally keeping those kids until someone can safely come in and pick them up.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So we are running out of time here. I see Ms. Warren has unmuted. Ms. Warren, if you'd like to have a brief response, if you can keep it to under a minute, I'll allow you to do that. You don't have to. But I saw that you unmuted. Is there something you wanted to respond to based on their comments?
Sure, thank you so much. Just kind of what I heard from the two speakers is we're coming. And we've communicated with Bond Hill Community Council. Bond Hill Community Council has kind of just got into the groove of resuming their meetings because they were sort of shut down and limited due to COVID. So a lot of that information is not being passed. We do have a block watch, and the resurrection is not a part of our block watch because they did not respond when we approached them. But the way that we went about and did that were boots on the ground. We knocked on each and every neighbor's door. And you're speaking to Bond Hill Community Council, which people live everywhere in Bond Hill, but my address is 1634. So it doesn't impact Jackie Everson the way that it impacts me. I'm aware that you guys have asked members of the community to serve on your board, and to them, some of them, it came across as a little bit of random, like, oh wow, I'm being asked. So it looks good to say this is who's on our board, but I'm still not seeing how that is going to change and impact anything with the project, because you have selected people from your board. It still does not give me your action plan. And so the same information that you were able to release to the community council, I think is the same information that you should be releasing to the door-to-door neighbors. And your statement, or the way that you come, should still not be, hey, we're coming, this is what we're going to do. We just want to get some things finalized, before we start announcing ourselves. It's still, ask the community who's going to receive you. Ask those who you are directly going to impact for their blessing, and let them know how you're going to work with them and how you're going to improve. Because I've heard how you're going to improve things for a set amount of boys. I've heard how how the church is now going to be in use for school, but I still have not heard how that's going to positively impact the surrounding blocks and how that is going to impact the safety of both the residents and the kids. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about that moving forward now that you guys are aware that community members feel like we've not been connected with on this issue.
Thank you, Ms. Warren. I appreciate you being here today. And again, I appreciate your testimony. I do want to give Mr. Lashide, who is our the zoning plans examiner for the city of Cincinnati, an opportunity. He prepared a staff report. Mr. Lashide, is there anything you'd like to provide in addition to that staff report here today?
Thank you, David. Not much. Our understanding is that the building has had a school within it historically. The main impetus for this review is the expansion of the footprint. So adding a new entry vestibule and a new elevator tower. Entry vestibule, I think, improves circulation around the site, and the elevator tower makes it ADA accessible. So those are two features that we're happy to support. The signage is a variance of one sign. Mr. Bruner's been very responsive and made sure that the package meets the zoning code to the greatest extent possible. I think it's reasonable for a school to have both a building sign and a ground sign, as can be seen on many other similar schools in residential districts. Some of the concerns about previous schools, I think, are valid, and that's why we have conditional use process and ask the applicant to hear and consider these things. But our understanding is that the use of a school is historically been within the property, and the main reason that we're reviewing it is those two external additions, which we would support.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Lashide. Appreciate your work on the staff report. Okay, we have 5 minutes for any closing remarks or any additional response to Ms. Warren's comments. Go ahead. Whoever would like to speak can go ahead now.
Yeah, just to clarify, and Ms. Warren, thank you. As far as the safety, things like security cameras and, secure doors and things like that aren't shown on a zoning plan typically, but I will, assure you that we have taken those items into consideration. There'll be significant camera presence along the main entry coming into the building. There'll be significant camera presence towards the back of the building going into the Bond Hill Park behind. And there'll be significant camera presence as well as security doors at the new entry for the new atrium. The ability for people in the surrounding neighborhood to walk through to the school's property will be shut off. There's going to be an extension, primarily of the fence at those alleyways from Anita Place. The full extent of those fence items, those are things that we're talking about after this process, as far as things to pursue variances for, just because, there's other requirements by the city of Cincinnati that we need to comply with. And that's a whole nother beast after this. But we are definitely looking into making sure that east side of the building, that east side of the site is completely secure. This is something we are very well aware of, and we definitely, especially for the ages of these children, 3rd through 8th, as a former teacher myself, this is something we've all been talking about, is making sure that we have secure points of entry on the east and west. The north entry into the building will be secured from California Avenue based with cameras and personnel. So this is something that, just going through the design process, those items aren't shown on the plans that we submit for these variance hearings and conditional use hearings, but they are within our project. And if we need to have a community meeting where we sit down and show you where everything's going to be, we are welcome to have, those meetings with you guys and talk about where we can include additional cameras, additional fencing, all of that. But that is one thing that we have. I can tell you the guy's name, Dale Bonanza. We've been on the phone. We've got the same birthday. I mean, we will definitely be willing to sit down with the community and talk about where all these locations are. But as I said, they are not on plans. They're not on foot or building plans that we submit for these hearings. But we do have them in consideration for this because, that 3rd through 8th grade demographic of students, that's a prime age for learning. And we want to make sure that they're protected so that they can, have the best learning experience as possible. So that's all of that.
Okay. Would anyone else from the applicant owner team like to say anything else in the last minute before we adjourn?
I just want to add one other piece of clarity to something that was said earlier regarding the mission of Xavier Jesuit Academy is not financial. So I'm the architect. This isn't an architectural response, but I'm also on the facilities committee for the board. So I'm not a board member, but I'm involved both professionally, but also from the mission standpoint. And so just for clarity, unlike other private or charter schools, I assure you that, in fact, the academy is raising money to subsidize families so that finances are not a barrier to a child's access to this education model. And I just wanted to say that because many of us have been involved for a long time, not for pay or return, not on the payroll, but simply because a belief in the mission. Personally, K4 Architecture, we're involved because we started working in 2017 with Church of the Resurrection to find solutions for what could be done with their school after Pace had left. So that's our involvement. Xavier Jesuit Academy really was a blessing that fell into the hands of the church because their organization and their donors selected and specifically targeted Bond Hill to be a recipient of what they're offering. So, I just hope, based on your comments and concerns, Ms. Warren, that I think the Xavier Jesuit Academy is hearing loud and clear, and we would all look forward to the engagement with you and other neighbors at a more finite level about how we can all make this a successful project. Thank you.
So, all right, thank you. We will have to leave it at that. I want to thank everyone again for their time and their testimony here today. I'm going to spend a little bit more time reviewing the application materials and the testimony from the hearing here today before I make a formal decision. When I do make a formal decision, I have to put that decision in writing. And just to be clear here, just so we're all on the same page, and especially Ms. Warren, who joined us late, the applicants here are requesting conditional use approval, which is a type of zoning relief in order to operate this school on the property. And they're also asking for a variance to install signage associated with that school. And so that's what I've been asked or tasked with determining whether I should approve that or not. And so again, I'm going to take all of the facts and all of the materials I have from this case, review them, and put out a formal decision that typically takes about 2 weeks. As soon as I finish that decision, I put it into a PDF and I email it to everybody who's in the hearing here today. So I have a copy of all of your email addresses, including Ms. Warren, I believe yours, which is at yahoo.com. Okay, great. And so you all will have a copy of that decision really just moments after it's complete. And of course, within that decision, you'll see whether this has been approved or denied, and the reasoning for that approval or denial. I will mention that there is a 30-day appeal period. So if anyone receives that decision and doesn't agree with it, you can appeal it to the Zoning Board of Appeals. If you have any questions about this process or anything related to the process of this application, I'm happy to answer those questions for you. I cannot take any more evidence or testimony or arguments about whether I should approve or deny this. This case is now closed in terms of new evidence coming in with the conclusion of this hearing. But I can answer questions about process and things like that. Or if you'd like a status update on where I'm at with the decision, I'm happy to provide that to you as well. So with that, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you all again for your time and your testimony. You'll be hearing from me shortly.